Let's clothe the hungry and feed the naked. That's what our church is about, right? Absolutely not. We have goals. We have things we want to get done in ministry, and we want to do it the right way. However, if you don't dig down and you set exactly what you're about, what you believe, and how you operate, you might just end up giving people not what they need and focusing on the wrong things. In today's show, we're going to talk about how to set the right direction for your church, and that way you can make goals that can actually be accomplished and impact more people. My name is Justin Nava, and I'm 1/3 of the Church Media Guys, part of Church Training Academy, where we teach you and your church how to use and exploit media and technology to spread your message and advance the gospel, get it out to more people. With me is Dave Curley, founder of Church Training Academy, running the show today. Dave, how are you this fantastic Tuesday?
I am great. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's raining now? Well, now it's raining, so it's a soggy Tuesday, but I am doing good. Our third cohort, Mr. Bill Jones, was with us during the pre-show. He's staying at an in-law's house, and they make him stay in the cupboard underneath the stairs. He's very Harry Potter, and so something has happened, and he will be rejoining us as soon as he is able. I think they may have had an internet hiccup. So, if you're watching this, we are waiting for you.
And we're praying for you, Bill. If you're watching this and you're excited for this topic, be sure to hit the subscribe button. We release new videos every week. We've got multiple shows now. We're putting out pro tips more often, and we want you to make sure you get them all. So also hit the bell as well. That'll give you a notification every time something comes up.
Yes.
Question of the day, whether you're watching live, we want to hear it. But if you're watching after the fact, still comment below. I want to ask you this question. Have you thought about the core values of your media ministry? Do you actually have a set of values that you can rattle off and say, this is what we're about, this is what we believe, this is how we work? Because values define really who you are as a person, and they can define who you are as a ministry. Dave, if you have a vague definition of what your ministry is here to do and serve, then you have a very vague impact, a very vague ministerial impact. Would you agree to that?
I would agree to that. Basically with any ministry, I think that you've got to have you've got to have a direction that you're going to do. I know for our church has a set of core values. We have a set of core ministry values, and that is that we call them chapters. We take everything from a story perspective. And so we've got various chapters. We've got a discipleship chapter. We've got a worship chapter. We've got a family focused chapter, etc. We got a missional chapter. So when we take a look at those, for us as a media ministry, it's how we support those chapters. So the media ministry's job, the value is that we are to support the family ministry, the missional ministry, the outreach, the worship ministry, and the discipleship ministry. And then how that looked physically is just according to what their needs are. And, like are we going to start live streaming or recording Bible studies and publishing them, during a lockdown time, then how can we do that? Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
And Bill said, he answered the question of the day, no, they don't have any values yet, but he hopes we'll tell you. We're not going to tell you what your core values are as a media ministry because every church is unique. We don't want to give you a cookie cutter answer, but we will give you a way to find out and set that up and define them. But first, one of the values of Church Training Academy is to make sure that you get your message out everywhere using the appropriate technologies. And if people want a multi-stream to be on both Facebook and YouTube and multiple other platforms, what's the way they can do that, Dave? You explain it so much better than I do.
Yes, I do. The best way that they can do that is to use a service like Restream. That is the service that we use to do that. If you go to getrestream.com, when you sign up, you can get a $10 credit. And Restream is really cool. We are using Restream right now, even though we are not streaming to multiple platforms. But that's what it lets us do. So with Restream, you're able to send your stream up your upload one time, okay? So you don't have to overload your 5 megabit upload or your 20 megabit upload. You don't have to overload it trying to send it to a whole bunch of different places. You just get one stream going out of your building and then let Restream handle the rest. You can connect it to your Facebook pages. You can connect it to your YouTube channel or channels. You can connect it to your Twitch stream. You can connect it to a whole bunch of different services. You can connect it to some arbitrary service that your buddy in Canada put together. We have a buddy in Canada who likes doing junk like this, who has put together and is building a completely custom thing for his church. That's fine. You can put that information in there. So basically, they handle the syndication, you handle the content, and it's really cool. So go to getrestream.com, and if you sign up using that link, which is ours, then you will get a $10 credit, and Restream will learn that we really love them. So we appreciate them doing that. Bill is with us. Finally, the man, the myth, the legend has returned. Or not.
Hey guys.
Oh, there he is.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Am I there?
Yes.
Am I back? Am I not?
You got deplatformed.
And I'm not. And I am. And I'm not.
No, you are. We see you.
Preaching too much truth.
I know, bro. I got silenced.
Yes.
Bill had a quick question about Restream. He said, "Is that not what Black Magic does?"
No, Black Magic is a company that makes hardware. So they make things like cameras, and they make things like switchers, and they make things like they make really good cameras. They make video hardware. Okay, Restream is a platform tool that is sitting out on the web. Okay, so you can go buy a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K camera, and then you can connect it to your computer using a Blackmagic capture card of some kind. Yeah, I've got one right here in the computer that I'm talking to you on. And it gets into my computer, and then I use software like vMix or Ecamm or OBS or something to actually mix all this together. This, what you're seeing right here, that with a triple box of me and Bill and the other guy, Justin, and our little name titles and social links and stuff listed on there. All that gets done inside vMix, and then we are streaming it. When I hit the stream button, it's connecting to restream.io/churchmediaguys, whatever, Dave Curley, however it's listed, whatever that URL is. It goes to their server, and then I tell it from that point to send it on to Facebook and YouTube, etc. So like tomorrow, we're going to be doing the Ecamm show. The show we do partnering with Ecamm Live, the Stream Your Church show with the Church Media Guys. And we actually send it out to 6 different locations. But from Justin's house or my house, whichever one of us is engineering the show, we're sending just the one signal. So we're streaming up to, not to YouTube directly, but streaming up to Restream. And then I will go in there and start toggling things. I will say, turn on the Church Media Guys YouTube channel, turn on the Ecamm Live YouTube channel, turn on this Facebook group, that Facebook group, this Facebook page, that Facebook page, and it will just start sending out the signal to all those. So I hope that clarifies for you.
100%. Today we're talking about, setting up your values, and unfortunately, topics like this aren't too. People are like, okay, I know where I want to go. I want to. I'm not making fun of the people that aren't here, but in my mind, they're like, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to share the gospel. I want to support the ministries. I know what direction my ministry is headed to.
Right.
I have goals. First of all, if you're watching this, congratulations to making it to this point. But there is much more.
That's funny, dude. I'm sorry.
There is much more to setting your ministry direction than just deciding where you want to go. It's funny how we treat ministry like this, but a lot of things in life aren't like that. We say, I want to be an accountant. Okay, so I have to set the direction that I have to go to financial school. Well, what kind of grades do I need to get to financial schools? What kind of prerequisites? I want to be, like my wife, a physician's assistant. I have to have 1,000 hours of shadowing. So what do I have to do to get to that point? Right. We say, I want to lose weight. What do I have to do to get to that point? We set the direction, but oftentimes our goals fall short because we haven't corrected our inner values, our core values, our inner beliefs. Whether we know it or not, we all have inner values. We'll talk about that. So first, I want to just go over, we want to set goals, and goals are good. SMART goals, what does SMART in the SMART goals stand for? It's simple, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's something and something.
Trackable.
Time.
It's
I know the
trackable.
time.
Trackable.
So they're great. but they have to align with where you want to go. And kind of like I teased, we're going to talk about, if you don't really know where you're going, you just want to do something to do it and you think it's a good idea. Well, clothing people is a great idea, but if they're hungry and you offer them clothes, you're not really addressing what they need. So that's why I was kind of at the beginning, I was like, clothe the hungry and feed the naked. You're not addressing the problem. I'm sure you feel great about it, but you're going against what people need. So goals need to be aligned with your values and how you're going to get there. If you don't, that's what creates self-sabotage. So we all have core values. We all have things that we believe, and believe it or not, whether you've never talked about it, like Bill in the chat said, we don't have any core values. You actually do. You just haven't defined them, right? It's kind of like, we talk about in relationships when a guy and girl are hanging out, and you're like, you need a DTR. Did y'all call it that when you were growing up? Define the relationship, Dave. Did y'all have the DTR?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. So you say, there's a relationship there. There's no doubt. You just have not defined it. And so in ministry, there are values there. We just haven't defined them. And when we don't define our values, we don't know where they are. So if we make goals without knowing what our values are, they could be in conflict, and that's what causes self-sabotage. For example, a great goal is I will exercise 5 times a week. That might even be too many for some people. I will exercise 3 times a week. That's a great goal. I don't think anyone would say that's a bad goal. So why do so many people self-sabotage and end up sleeping in, skipping workouts, and eating poorly, which makes their workouts even harder, which makes it not want them to not go? It's because they have an inner value of, for example, my own inner value that I have to wrestle with. Food equals love. So if I want to love myself, I feed myself a lot of food. If my family wants to love me, they cook me meals. And they may not be healthy meals. They may work against my goal, which is to work out 3 to 5 times a week. And because my inner value is about food and the love that it is, I love myself, but then that hinders me going to the workout, either A, because the food makes me sleepy and I skip my workout, or it makes the workout harder, I don't work out as much, etc. So that is kind of like the self-sabotage we can have if we don't define our inner values first. Then we can't get to our goals. Another example, it's a great goal to go to college, but if your inner value is to just party all the time when you're in high school and focus on the ladies, or if you're a lady, focus on the guys, or play video games, if you value that more, then the goal is not going to do anything for you if you want to go to college. You have to have your values align with your goals. Did all that make sense?
Absolutely.
I want to hear some feedback from you guys in the chat, from Dave and Bill as well. If you have any questions about the topic, #question. If you have any questions off topic, we'll get to them in the post show. So we know you have to have values first, and then you set your goals and to make sure they align with your values. So I want you to ask yourself, Bill said we don't have any core values. And I am lovingly correcting you, Bill. You do have core values. You just haven't defined them. So the first thing you have to do is define them. So this is your homework assignment. I know usually homework comes at the end of class, but I'm giving it to you right now in the middle. Okay? You have to ask yourself, what are 10 things? 10 things I believe should be true about my ministry. In this example, we're going to say media ministry. What are 10 things I believe should be true about our media ministry? And before you start writing stuff down, by the way, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay, feel free to pause it here or, continue watching and do this while I talk. These values should not be technical, okay? I need to know how to use OBS. It's not a value, okay? You need to write down 10 things that you believe about your ministry. How should it operate? How does relationships become a part of it? How does time become a part of it? How does execution become a part of it? How does communication be a part of it? What are the values you have in your ministry that are very, they're not vague, but they're not super refined of, I value that we have a Behringer X32. That's one of our core values. We will always have a Behringer appliance in our sound booth. That is not a core value.
No.
Okay? Not a core value. It may be something you value, but it is not a core value. Once you get to 10, once you write out 10, and believe me, 10 is hard, okay? Everything great in your life does not come easy. It comes from hard work. And I guarantee you, all the ministries we look up to, North Point, Elevation, Hillsong, they've done this work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They may have done a variation, but they've done this work. Their leadership has done this work. Once you have 10, and it's hard to write down 10, you might come up with 3 or 4. You're going to think for a bit and come up with 5, 6, 7. You might have to go to sleep and pray about it, meditate on it to get to 8, 9, 10. You cannot skip 10. You have to do 10. Once you have 10, I want you to circle or highlight or underline the top 5 most important. Okay. Do not just go to 5 and be happy, because oftentimes once you get the 5 out of the way and then you write 5 more, you'll realize that the first 5 or 2 of the first 5, they're not really that important. What you really dug down into the communication, relationship, connection, emotional components of your ministry values really came in the last few. Okay. So write 10 and then circle 5. I have never seen anyone do this exercise and they just circled the first 5. All right. Once you do that, that's basically your values. Okay. I'm going to share my ministry values, and if Dave or Bill want to share as well.
Hang on a second before you do that. DJ's got a question. What if you have outside influences that you have no control over that interrupt your goals, or get in the way of your values?
That's a great question. No one can interrupt your values. They can interrupt certain goals you set.
Sure.
But no one can interrupt your values. Okay. That will be something that I will kind of give you an example of in my own core values. But yeah, no one can interrupt your values. Just for example, no one can interrupt my belief in God.
Right.
Okay. I've told friends this. The only way you can convince me that Jesus did not die or whatever is if you can find me scientific, irrefutable proof of Jesus's body and remains, right? If we find Jesus's body and remains, that's it. This whole thing's made up. It was a great story. We had a good time. Until that happens, I have no reason to believe that Jesus did not come to die,
right,
to save us from ourselves, from our sins. So we have certain values, and no one can get in the way of that. So to help you think through some things, I don't want you to copy these. Maybe you can copy a couple of them, because I understand that sometimes you have an idea and you don't know how to put it into words. So one of these might help you. But here are my 5 ministry values. And also, if you're like, wow, that's really good, those are really good values, it took me about 8 years to come down to this list of 5. And it is a moving target, but it's not changing every week. Okay. I might serve in ministry in one time by myself, and I have a certain set of values. But then as I bring on team members, I realize that other values when working as a team become more important. So I'm going to give you 5 of my values to just kind of see kind of where I'm going about this. So number 1, when we serve in media ministry, and I'm going to say on my team, I understand it's not my team, but these are the values that I've built into my media ministry, streaming ministry, booth ministry, all this kind of stuff. These are my 5 values. Number 1, team over self. Okay. And also over the years, I've kind of condensed this. So it obviously started with concern and help the team before I help myself. Okay. This means that as a leader, if Joe says he needs the weekend off because his wife's in the hospital, he gets the weekend off because he's more important than myself. Okay. And I will come in and run sound. All right. If Bill says, which I realize not talking about our Bill, but if Bill says that he's in school and he's having a hard time because he's got a late Saturday night study group, he's got Black Mondays where he has 7 tests every day and he needs the semester off, he gets the semester off because he matters more than I do. Okay. Now, on the contrary, everyone has this value. Everyone on the team has this value. Therefore, if I have something come up, if my wife is coming to church on a Sunday morning and she wants me to sit with her, my team needs to recognize Justin's wife is coming and she wants him to be with the family, so we're going to take over so Justin can go sit with his wife. That works all the way around. It does not say team over Justin. It says team over self. Everyone carries that value. Number 2, speed over perfection. This means get it done and then worry about perfecting it later. Okay. This kind of blends in with core value number 3. We talked about this last night in Mastermind. To improve is to change, to perfect is to change often. Okay. That means always be improving, always be changing things, not just to change things, but to improve them. Okay. To improve is to change, to perfect is to change often.
And where did that quote come from?
That came from a fantastic show, family friendly, not House of Cards on Netflix.
There you
and
go.
Who knows where they got it from because nothing's original anymore. But speed over perfection. So if I need slides on the presenter computer, this is a great example in my last church. We had a presentation computer and a streaming computer. I needed slides on the presentation computer. I got tired of pointing the camera at the screen. This was before I knew about NDI. So what I did was I said, okay, we can get a video switcher and we can run cabling to the presenter computer and bring it in as another feed, as a webcam, whatever, and then we can broadcast it. That's going to take some money. That's going to take some research. If it's expensive enough, we'll have to get separate bids. Fastest thing I can do right now to get slides this Sunday is I'm going to walk over with a USB stick. I'm going to plug it in, copy the slides that were delivered on that morning, maybe a video, plug it in my presenter computer, and run it that way. And basically when the presentation computer goes live, clicks play on the video, I could click play on Ecamm Live that we were using. That is not perfect.
Nope.
That is probably the least perfect way you could do that. But I needed it this Sunday, or I wanted it, and I decided I wanted it this Sunday. Speed over perfection. Then, to improve is a change, to perfect is a change often. Then I said, okay, how can I do this NDI? We can bring it in via NDI. And then we actually got a great video switcher. And then we actually networked everything, so the NDI even worked even better. So that was the third value: to improve as a change, to perfect as a change office. Number 4 is questions first. Okay, and this is something that is really hard to teach. Okay, but basically, never assume anything. Always ask why. Always ask, if you can, how, when, where, and why. So if pastor comes up and says, "Hey, I need you to grab," it say like service starts at 9:30 and it's 9:29. Okay, pastor says, "I need you to find this on YouTube." Okay, you don't say, "All right, I'll find it." You'll say, I might say, have you found this before? Do you have a link? Did you find it before? Do you remember what it was called? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, if someone says it's too loud in here, okay, my answer is not going to be, "It's not too loud. You have no idea what loud is. Have you been to a concert? Look right here. I'm only running 87 decibels, 96 decibels. The AC is by itself is 40 decibels. You don't know which." No, it's loud in here. My first question: what's loud, right? Because it may not be too loud. It may be one instrument's loud. It may be the EQ is off, which makes it sound loud. When you have a great EQ, you can easily run over 100 decibels,
Sure.
and no one's going to notice. Okay, so it could be an EQ issue. You will never find that out if you're going to argue with people or shout or speak more than you question. So you always have to ask questions. Why? Why are we doing this? What is the outcome? What do you mean? How are we going to do this? How am I supposed to do that? Okay. You want to make your pastor realize how hard it is to do a video. If he tells you on Tuesday that he needs a video by Sunday, ask him, how am I supposed to do that? And either he will help you get it done, or he'll realize it's a what's the word I'm looking for?
Unrealistic?
It's a difficult request. It's an unrealistic request.
There you go.
And therefore he'll figure out a different option, right? That's great. Other than, "Hey, I can't do that. What do you think? What do you think I'm made of?" Or, "Okay," and then you go kill yourself trying to get a video done by Sunday. So questions first is our 4th value. Number 5 is solution over problems. This one's real simple. Instead of focusing on a problem, find a solution.
Yeah.
Okay? Instead of saying, "Man, it sucks that I got to point my camera at the screen. I hate looking at the screen every Sunday." Okay, great. You can say that till the cows come home. Figure out a solution. Get it done. Speed over perfection. Always focus on solutions more than problems. So, to go back to was it DJ? Yeah. Outside influences have no control. What if outside influences, interrupt your values or your goals? They can interrupt your goals. I can say, "Hey, pastor, I need $300 to get a new video switcher." That's not going to happen. All right. Well, guess what? My value is speed over perfection, solutions over problems. He's not interrupting that. He's giving me a problem. I'm going to find a new solution. So maybe my solution is using my phone, finding someone else to use their phone, running multicam, whatever. There's something there. Even if I said, "Pastor, our camera broke. I need $1,000 for an equivalent camera." No, we can't do that. Okay, that's a problem, but I'm going to focus on solutions. I probably got $1,000 of stuff in the media booth. Okay, people, if you go on Amazon and you look up used forks, people are buying used plastic forks. If you go to Amazon, you can look plastic forks. There's a $500 box, 500 count box of plastic forks that you can buy for $20. People are buying used ones for $6. I don't know who's buying used plastic forks, but people are buying used plastic forks. They'll buy your media equipment. Solutions over problems. What can I sell around here that we're not using anymore? That's a liability that I can sell, that can be someone else's asset, so I can get money in return so I can buy this camera. Maybe if I get halfway, Pastor will be like, oh, wow, he already got 500. Well, I can do 500. I couldn't do 1,000. So let me put in the other 500. And then you got your camera because you focused on solutions over problems. Nothing can get in the way of your values once you define what your values are. Okay? They can interrupt your goals. They can even interrupt your mission. But no one can interrupt your values. One of my personal values is do not bend the knee to anyone or anything unless it's my desire, which means I don't bend my knee to much. Okay? Everyone can come in and demand. They can come in and put a gun to my throat or a knife to my throat, whatever. They are not going to interrupt that value. Okay? No one can interrupt your values. Bill said, do you have a template as you did with the personal values? No, just a piece of paper is good. These are my personal values. It's on a note card. So that's, and I just happen to have them right next to me. So that's my values. Did all that make sense, Dave? You notice how I'm asking a question? I'm not going to assume you got it right. I'm not going to assume you knew it. I'm asking a question. Did that make sense, Dave and Bill?
Yes. Yes, and I have similar values, but I think a lot of it, I think you're right. Your values will never change. Your mode of operation is what changes. And I think that's what you were going towards when you said that, hey, if I can't have this camera, I'm going to find another solution. And I think you find that depending upon the size of your congregation, the size of your budget, the size of your team, your modes will change constantly. But your values have to stay essential. And I think the number one value is the same. I think all three of us would probably say we all have the same number one value. And we may say it differently, but it's always, that people over performance is kind of how I put it. And I think that means it's the same thing as what Justin was saying about team over individuals. So people over performance is kind of the same thing, where it's like, my drummer, I only have one, he needs a break, then my drummer's going to get his break. And, we'll do an acoustic Sunday. I don't mind doing acoustic Sunday. I love acoustic Sundays.
Right.
But, and it's being intentional too. It's realizing, we've gone, we're a small team. It's pretty much all the same people every Sunday. And now we're doing 2 services because of COVID. So now I've got to go in and realize, okay, we've got to plan some breaks because everybody's doing 2 services, whereas they were used to doing 1. How do we do that? And again, people over performance, because my final goal is my final value really kind of sets the foundation for you're always going to have a good day if this is your final value, and that is you always do the best with what you have.
Right.
And if you can say that I did the best with what I have, you're always going to have a good day.
Yeah, 100%. That we talked about that in Mastermind last night as well. Success is giving it your full effort, doing everything you can to play with competitive greatness, meaning you don't just do good, you do your best.
Right.
Almost as if competitively. And, both teams can play competitive, but there's only one winner. I know that's not a popular take nowadays, but, if you do your best, I mean really best, not just a good job, but if you do your best, then you'll have a very, very good, successful ministry. So what does this have to do with direction? Well, once you have your values, you know exactly where to direct your goals.
Right.
Because you won't make lofty goals. You won't make things that will fall apart. So, for example,
your goals will support your values.
By the end of the year, I want a new Canon XA45. What do those run, Dave? For $2,500?
XA45? I'll tell you. Yeah, they're about that. Let's see. XA.
I know the
25.
15 is 1,300 or 1,500.
Okay, I'm looking at backpacks now. How did that happen?
He's in the hole. He's in the hole.
XA25. Let's look. 17, 1800. Yeah.
17. Okay, cool. So $1,800. By the end of the year, I want an $1,800 camera. It's quite a lofty goal. Okay, but if I don't have these values, that speed over perfection, to improve is to change, then guess what? When I make that goal, I'm kind of setting myself up for failure, because if I can't get that $1,800 or even $1,500 for a refurb, then I don't know if that's the best goal for me right now. So maybe by the end of the year, I got 6 months. By the end of the year, I want a second camera, right? And I want it to be better. Okay, right now I'm using a $250 camera. There's a lot of cameras that I can get for a lot less than $1,700 that's better than this. Okay, guess what? That matches with my speed, because if I view an XA45 as perfection, which I know it's not, but maybe I do, then I'm choosing speed over perfection. I can reach perfection later. I want a better camera by the end of the year. To improve is to change, not to perfect is to change, or to perfect is, or excuse me, to change is just to perfect. No, to improve is to change. So any improvement is on the way to perfection, right? And then solutions over problems. Well, the solution to my camera issue right now is I need a better camera. Okay. The problem is not that I don't have an XA25 or an XA45. The problem is that I have a Vixia HF R800. So a solution would be just to get a better camera, period. And guess what? I can also, as a solution, I can use this camera now for the youth group. So now the youth pastor can start streaming with something better than his 720p FaceTime camera that Apple still will not update. Okay.
Which doesn't make any sense. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
It makes me so mad.
but you get to pay a premium for it.
Why do these such expensive machines have such terrible FaceTime cameras? Anyways, so those values help me determine a better goal. And instead of an all or nothing shot that I'm going to take shot in the dark, and God love us, sometimes he answers those goals. I think a more responsible and a better stewardly way of setting our goals is to know what our values are. And then when we set those goals, we can actually meet them and attain them. And if I can't, if by the end of the year I don't have $250, by then I'll know that that's still a problem, but I'll have a solution. I will get a garage sale going with my media team. Again, I'll sell stuff here. I'll go mow lawns for the church and take it up as a love offering. You pay us what you want. If it's not, you don't pay us anything. That's fine too. That can be a ministry. Whatever it can be, fundraising. Those are solutions over problems that I have, right? That's how the values direct our goal. And so by the end of the year, I've improved my ministry, but by knowing what I'm about and what I believe and how I'm going to get there. That's how we properly set the media ministry direction. We have to know where we're going. Kind of in relationship too. Hey, I'd love to have 2.5 kids and $3 million in the bank when I retire at 65. Let's say retire at 55. That's a lofty goal. And if my value is not, if my inner value is not family first, meaning I'm just going to work all the time, I might not have a family by the time I turn 55.
Right.
Okay. If my inner value is, which would be an undefined one. No one would define this value. If my inner value was party hardy, and live life to its fullest, that conflicts with the goal of retiring with $3 million in the bank at the age of 55. That's a self-sabotage. So knowing the values helps us get the goals that we want to reach to, and then how we can achieve those goals as well. So as far as implementing them in your media ministry, it's really super simple. Number one, you're gonna write down these 10 values, right? We said you got to write down 10, then you narrow it down to 5. And then run them by your team. Say, hey guys, do you think this defines us? Is this what's important to us? One of your team members, especially the people that have been there the longest, may have another insight and say, you didn't really say anything about communicating with leadership. We really do believe that it's important to be a part of ministry. Be a part of communication with the leadership. Dave, from talking to you, it sounds like your media ministry value is you're part of the music ministry. You are part of the main ministry. You're not a support ministry. We are
the worship team.
Because people have difficulty worshiping when there's no slides,
right,
when there's no live stream. So you are in there. That sounds like a value that your ministry could have. So run them by your team, because they may provide some insight or some better verbiage. People over perfection, I like that. I'm not going to take it, but I like it. Or excuse me, people over performance. And then once you have that 5, that core 5, you're going to commit them to memory. Your team's going to have them committed by memory. But then also, I suggest you enshrine them in your booth somehow. Make a nice poster. Go to Etsy, get someone to put it on a design, or go to Fiverr.
Needlepoint.
Make a poster. Something.
Have
Maybe
it cross-stitched on pillows.
like that. Get a little Flash from DC, Flash superhero figurine, and like, this is our speed. We are shooting for speed over perfection. Questions first. Get a question mark bobblehead. I don't know if that exists, but something to remind you every time you walk in the booth. This is what we're about. Dave, you have your church's core values, right? On the wall of your church in the foyer, right?
Yeah,
you showed me
we
that?
do. Mm-hmm.
That's a reminder to everyone that walks in those doors. This is what we're about, and you should have the same thing in your booth. And then live them. That's step 3. So it's really easy. Live them. Create your goals around them. And then how do you get your goals not just make you feel good, but how do they align with your inner values and what you're about as a team? That's all I got.
That was good.
And cut.
Yeah. Okay, so Pete said, our goal is to grow believers to maturity so the gospel is spread throughout the world. When setting up the streaming portion of our media before the pandemic, the goal was to reach at least one person so they can hear/see the gospel. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that goal, because it's not definable, right? Like, I want a better camera at the end of the year. I know whether I've met that goal.
Right.
Goals should have a time frame or something. So, but I think that's the start of a good value. 100%. Grow believers to maturity so the gospel is spread through the world. Our goal is to reach at least one person so they can hear/see the gospel. I mean, that's also a pretty easy goal. So I would say, our value is, the one that comes to mind is the gospel beyond 4 walls. That's one of our values. We're going to do everything we can as a media ministry to get the gospel outside of these 4 walls. We're going to do that by streaming. We're going to do that by podcasting. And one of our goals for streaming is to see at least one person. That's still kind of a result. Our goal is to stream every service 50 weeks a year. So maybe we'll give ourselves 2, right? But our goal is to stream 50 by the end of the year. And one of the lag measures, if you've read the book, the 4 disciplines, one of our goals one of the results we want to see is one person come to salvation because of our stream.
Right.
That's how I would put that. The value is the gospel belongs not within the 4 walls, or do everything we can to get the gospel outside of this church.
Fulfill the Great Commission.
Because then also, streaming wise, that value is not limited to your preacher.
Right.
That value also contains midweek testimonials, midweek discussions, midweek Q&As with the children's pastor, doing a presentation on a Thursday evening for kids. That value can look like a lot of goals. And
a lot of different ways to implement the mechanics necessary to espouse the value.
Yeah. And then Pete said during the pandemic, a value is to reach the membership that want to worship from home. Again, that comes back to that same value of the gospel should go beyond our four walls. Right. I would play with the wording, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, so okay.
DJ said he has to go, but he'll hit us up on future live streams. We're awesome. God bless you. Keep up the good fight. You too, DJ.
So here's a for instance. We had somebody in the Hacks group the other day was asking a question about the necessity of putting the media booth in the auditorium versus somewhere else in the building, and one of the reasons that they said was because our pastor, it's to put it in the back of the room. We don't have enough space back there, so we'd have to take out 1 or 2 of the pews. And so she was asking about, is there a solution out there that I'm not aware of? When you take a look at it from a value standpoint, if the value, one of the core values of the church is to make sure that you are fulfilling the Great Commission, that you are preaching the word, that you are reaching families, you're changing lives, etc., then the solution doesn't there's not a huge consideration when it comes to taking out a couple of pews. It becomes a no-brainer because this is going to help us reinforce the values. Our values are doing what it takes to reach people, to change lives. So if that means that the two people that sit on the back row move up a row, that's a no-brainer. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, y'all need to move forward. We're taking this row out. You know what I'm saying? It's because
a little bit outside of the scope.
Because
that
you're doing
church
whatever
values are not. It's kind of like, the church values, like Pete said, the gospel belongs outside the four walls. Okay, right. Maybe there is not another remote location to do a proper, well done live stream. I think the booth does have to be, if not in the sanctuary, it needs to be like almost like a cry room, like it needs to be behind a window or something. Right. You need to be able to see the stage. You need to know what's going on. I don't like green screen, what I call green screen live stream rooms where you're not even connected to the sanctuary. I don't like that. You need to be able to see what's going on.
Right.
You need to be in the environment. There's a reason why when you go to concerts, the booth is right in the middle of the crowd on the floor. Okay, it's not off somewhere. I guarantee you it'd be easier to be off somewhere. Right. But there's a reason why they're there on the floor taking up those valuable seats that would cost $10,000.
Right.
Instead, the booth is there.
And there's a reason. There's logistics
our value is
for that.
Exactly.
There's logistics
our value
behind
is to
that.
Reach more people beyond the four walls. If we cannot move these pews, two people are getting in the way of potential 100 people outside these walls. Are we going to let those two people impact the 100 people because our value is to get it beyond the four walls?
Right.
Well, the value kind of answers that question. Okay, I know it stinks, but there's 18 other pews,
right?
6 of which have no one else on them. I know you like the view. I know this is where you've sat. Let's work something out. You can sit behind us in the booth if that's what we need to do. We'll figure that out. But the value answers that question. And if the membership can see those values, it's no longer about, well, he just wants to sit there because that's the best seat in the house. And, we like this seat. It's comfortable. It's not too loud. There are great reasons to prefer a seat in the sanctuary. I'm not against you. I always sit underneath the air conditioned vent. I always seek that seat first. Okay. But when you explain the value, it's not a matter of we want to kick you out because we want to build a booth here. Okay. If you want to be blunt, we want you to move so we can build a booth here to reach 100 more people.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a lot easier to move than we want to do construction, right? No one's going to move for construction. People will move and get up and make changes for getting the gospel outside of four walls for your value.
And that value, that level of values, the values of you as a church, the values of you as a body of believers who are called to fulfill the Great Commission, that comes from the top down. So that's not you, you the person who's on the worship team, or you the person who is the worship leader, you the person that is the sound engineer or the live streaming engineer or the social media person. You are reflecting the values that are being handed down from you, and sometimes it may make sitting down with the senior leadership and saying, hey, have we considered this, having some of these values, because they may not be there yet. If your pastor is overworked, lots of them are, they may not be enriching themselves, which means they may not be reading books that teach these sort of things and help them move to the next level. And that's why we end up with situations like, well, we've never done it like that before. Well, 85% of the rest of the churches in the nation are. Probably means that you might want to take a look at it, at least give it some consideration. That sort of thing, because they're so entrenched in what they're doing. Their value is all this hard work. Their value is not the results of the hard work and looking at better ways to accomplish it. Does that make sense?
100%. It all comes down to your values.
Yeah. And, guys, I know we got to wrap it up. I think this is probably a conversation that we'll have for the next 40 or 50 years.
Oh, sure.
Because it's intrinsic to human nature. I've been as a pastor's kid and all my life, and then starting ministry early in life to where I've got probably, 20 years of ministry under my belt. And in all those scenarios and situations, Unfortunately, you will find that ego is the root of most of your issues.
Mm.
And it really goes back to why that number one core value is others over myself,
Right.
basically. And but that also means that you have to take care of yourself so you have the mental and emotional capacity to be able to put others in front of you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pastors, a lot of ministers out there running on empty because they haven't learned how to do that well yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of this, I mean, really comes down to culture, because at the same time,
Yep.
in the churches
Yeah.
that I've been in, the elders or the deacons, one of their values is support the pastor.
Right.
And when they have that value, they are no longer a hindrance. They are an asset to the pastor. They're a place for the pastor to find support, find comfort, find a place to vent, a shoulder to cry on, a shoulder to yell at. And therefore, the pastor has that support. So once these values start, you know, coming around, everyone starts supporting each other. Everyone can support each other the way that we want it to. You know, to improve as a change, to perfect as a change often, that's a core value of the media ministry, but that also impacts the kids ministry.
Yep.
Because we're going to look at the check-in process and say, you're still using paper? You know, computers can do that a lot faster and free up your time so you can do more ministry with the kids.
They can?
We're going to use that value to speak into them. The
Right.
children's a great example when we come to technology is the children's pastor coming up to me and say, hey, I want to buy these computers at Walmart. I'm not going to say, no, those computers are dumb, buy these computers. And I'm telling her a $1,600 computer versus a $400 computer. Instead, questions first. Why do you want that computer? Well, it's cheap. All right. Is there anything specific you need it to do? Well, yeah, I need it to run the software. Oh, guess what? The cheap computer cannot run that software.
Right.
Here's what questions first helps you help their ministry and support them in that technology aspect. I've saved churches countless of money by just asking why. And that's why it's a core value of the media ministry, because we want to support the best way we can, and we have to ask questions. So absolutely, you can support your own ministry, but once you set these values, you can exponentially support other ministries as well, like the pastor, and the pastor can support you and all this good stuff. It's once you get into a harmony, that's where the kingdom blows up. And I really believe the big churches that are doing it well, they've reached that harmony.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, folks, this has been a heady conversation. This is a little bit out of our normal wheelhouse, and I hope it's been informative and helped you think and all that. All the stuff that we've been talking about, put it into action. Take it. Don't just set it on the shelf and stuff, but actually take it and use it to go change lives. We'll see you in the next one.